Okay, Rudy. Welcome.
Dave, how are you? How are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you always.
Yes, yes, because it's been a long time. You were now in England, I guess, and I'm in the Netherlands. So, yeah, but great.
Yes.
It's always great to see you.
And you, likewise. So, it's good to have you on and have a conversation with you. As you know,
Yeah,
um, we have connected and we've known each other for quite some time. Do you want to, for anyone that might be listening, just give a bit of background of on that?
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we met each other in a clinic, and I was working there as a family counselor, and you were there um, to help families with their youngster to bring them and to motivate them to seek for help. Yeah, so to accept the help that they needed to have, and what I really found funny is also the way you worked. It's from your gut feeling. It's from your intuition. It was, but it was very well methodic. Yeah, so you had a plan. You always had a plan. Sometimes you discovered your plan afterwards, but in the end, when we talked about it, you always had a plan how you work with people. I think the first thing what you were doing is to have contact with someone else. Um, and when there is a bonding, when there is rapport, you can talk about yourself. Um, and what I like about you, the way you were working also, is that you looked at him in a very normal way. So
Yeah. I always see people as people, not not the label that's been put on them, or
yeah,
what they
yeah,
think they are or
yeah,
not.
yeah. And what is also so funny, and I think it's not typical British, to be honest. Yeah, it's but as you are describing yourself as a kind of a lone wolf, in a way, you were also a lone wolf. You were not under an organization. You were doing your own thing, um, and the most important thing is a client. So, and that what I really liked about it,
Yeah,
because in a way, I try to do that too.
definitely. That's why we connected on that level. We recognized that what you just described in each other. I think I recognized that in you.
Yeah.
A good working ethic, integrity, and authenticity is what I would say. And being a bit outside the box, being a bit of a rogue maverick kind of stuff.
Especially, correct. I'm rewatching, by the way, for the third time. I'm rewatching The Wire. It's kind of a series. Yeah, it happens in Baltimore about a police guy.
Love it.
Um,
Yeah, love it.
yeah, and it's McNulty, played by I can't. No, it's not so important. A British actor, by the way. And
Idris Elder.
no, that's the other side. McNulty is Dominic West. Yeah, Dominic West. And it's not so important. But what I like about his character is that he was always against bureaucracy, always in favor for the people, and always, yeah, thinking outside the box, but also thinking outside the standard operational procedures and so on and so on. So he did his own thing, and it's always that's a little bit story of my life. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how I
Uh,
like to work.
so that was like when we first linked in. That was going back. It's quite a long time ago in my eyes. It's
20 years,
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, maybe more, 8 years, something like that. Anyway, and as you say, I've always been outside of the confines of a container. I sort of
Yeah.
do my own thing. But at the time you was there, and then you since have moved on, and you've got a massive backstory way before that place, way before that time. So I want you just to, if you would be so kind, just go
Yeah,
into, because it's really, I'm fascinated by um, your background of where you came
yeah.
from.
I always start with my youth. So I lived and I was raised. My parents, they were, yeah, you can say they were poor. Yeah, so my father was the only person who was working. My mother, they both passed away, and I really love them, by the way. So, but she was not the most active person in the world, if you can say so. Yeah, so in a way, it was a kind environment, but it was a mess where I lived. So, and I'm short for the people who don't know me, but I'm short, and my mom is also not so that kind of people person who buy the right clothes and so on. So I was rather peculiar. Yeah, so where I was raised, being poor, I was being bullied and all those kind of things. Not that I'm traumatic about it, not at all, by the way. Um, um, but I was raised in a neighborhood, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Antwerp. Yeah. And what happened is that everybody was thinking, yeah, that guy, yeah, 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 poor him, and so on. But what happened is that later on, I started to study psychology. Yeah, I know why, because I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't pass the audition, so I needed to go to do something else. And then we worked in a parish and talking with people I really like. So I said, why not psychology? So I started with my psychology, and what happened was a real transformation for me because being the one who is never been seen, yeah, going to psychology, and everybody was talking, wow, how is it to live there in that kind of neighborhood? And what do you experience? Because uh, m- half of all the students, they were rescuers. They want to help other people, and especially the poor people and so on. Um, but what happened is that it became a real transition for me also. So I started to become, yeah, well known in how to talk with difficult people, how to talk with people who are not motivated, or poor people, and so on and so on. So that was my first start, and then what I did was working with young people in a kind of a child replacement. How do you call it? So not an orphan, but when it's not possible to stay at home, you
I mean, yeah, I mean, orphanage is a word that's commonly known,
okay.
or care, supported care, residential place for
Yeah.
young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of for 7 years. So I was the big brother, if you know what I mean. Not being a father, but being a big brother. Not a tall one, but much more than that. So and yeah, it was great to work with them. So for 7 years, and I did some in a place for people who became homeless. So it's kind of a shelter. That's what I did afterwards. I also worked 4 years with people who were addicted to heroin, so the junkies on the
Mhm.
street. So I gave methadone. Um, and also went to prison to motivate them to go to a clinic instead of staying in prison. Worked 4 years for a community center for people, and also how do you call it when you give food? Yeah, a food bank. Is it a food bank? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a bank.
food
Yeah,
bank
just
is, yeah.
food bank. Yeah, so that's also what I did. By the way, I'm against it now, but that's something else. Um, and 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 then I worked in a forensic psychiatric setting, a medium security, and then over 11 years in a clinic, in a youth clinic. So and yeah, and then after my youth clinic, I also worked in a highly secured forensic psychiatric setting. Uh, so in a way, I'm going to be honest about that. Now I work in a small private rehab clinic for adults. Um, but to be honest, I saw everyone. I saw
Yeah.
I saw the most poor people. I saw the most expensive houses, but I also saw the bridge, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so where there's hut, and so being there, done that. and sometimes I try to surprise myself. Okay, what kind of stories I never heard? Yeah, but I think I heard everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, that is, it's a very broad landscape of, people,
yeah,
that you've seen, and there's 2 opposing ends of the spectrum. There's the highly, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Affluent, maybe? People that
yeah,
have luxury in their lives
yeah, yeah,
per se,
yeah,
measured by, material things, let's say.
yeah,
And then on the other end of the spectrum, and it's similar to where you've come from, you just said that, not a lot, don't have a lot,
yeah,
complete opposite, and everything in between. And I've worked like you, I've got my own share of experience in that landscape.
and,
That
and
so I think it's interesting just to, like, I think you was about to do it anyway, is to the similarities, right?
oh yeah, yeah. That's so funny, yeah. Let's start with the similarities. First of all, I try to say to everyone, and let me give you further context. I think that everyone sitting in front of me is normal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I tell you why. Of course, not everyone is normal. Yeah, but because I work in that highly forensic psychiatric setting, so people who become very psychotic, very ill, don't know who the other person is on the other side, where they talk with, don't know how to regulate their emotions, being psychotic, and so on and so on. Then I think by myself, "Ooh, this is heavy." Yeah, yeah. Also, when you have problems, I don't think there are huge problems. I tell you why, because when you met someone who killed her child when the child was 2 years old, that's a heavy problem, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So, so that's the reason I compare sometimes. Yeah, and that's also sometimes where I'm become that other kind of mental health worker who is different than the other ones because everybody thinks that everything what happens in people's their life is traumatic or heavy and so on and so on, or you're going to kill by that kind of experience when you continue to do that. I'm not that guy, yeah, because I think we are stronger than it is. So so I would say 95, 98% in front of me is normal. Yeah, let's start with that. And then when you do it like that, then you go further. And what I can see is that there are two things. Yeah, it's about connection, disconnection that people have
Yeah.
first, and the second is the meaning of life. Yeah, what's your meaning of life? And
Purpose.
yeah, what's your purpose? And so
Mm.
on. Where am I? And now I also work with very old people, by the way, because I work at the GP at the moment. Not too. So people who are going to die and then so on in the last stage of their life. But that's what I see in general. And for example, when you are very wealthy, but you don't know what to do, and there is no reason to get out of bed because there is money enough. Yeah, then we have a problem. When you coming out of your bed and you don't have a job and you don't know what to do because you and so on and so on. Yeah, that's a similarity. Is there is no purpose anymore. And when you are alone, because for example you are poor and nobody look at you, yeah, then you got a problem. But when you are alone because you are very rich and everyone around you wants something from you and not giving something back, then you're also alone. And these are for me those kind of topics where I always get to, you know,
Yeah,
believe.
similarities there.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So I just want to press you on the, because I'm fascinated by the nutty, fruity kind of types of people.
I,
I think they're wonderful, and you put it great, right? That there's nothing wrong with you, right? And I'm a big fan of that. Like, as in, you're not broken. There's not anything that needs fixing, right?
no,
It's just you are a little bit disconnected from a sense of
Yep.
self, right? Of
Yep.
authenticity, of who your true nature is, right? And you've just deviated for whatever reason, circumstance, and this is just my opinion, right? It's just the
Yep.
way I see it.
Mhm.
So, do you wanna just go into a little bit more? I mean, you've got to be careful because 'cause we've got to safeguard privacy, et cetera, so you can't be naming
Yeah.
certain cases, but, if you got, like, an example of, not a typical because, but just a scenario that you've been through in such cases, you know?
About what?
About someone who just sort of lost their way a bit and sat in front of you that you've had to, talk to, and help. Psychiatric
Oh,
wise, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, before that, I want to say something else because I want to talk about the difference too, and and or I want to talk about what can we learn from each other also. What I noticed with people who are what I noticed with people sometimes is who are very successful, and to be honest, the successful people are also the people who are generally a little bit much more wealthy. Yeah. And I'm not talking wealthy only in money, but also in feeling good and feeling happy and so on. But what I saw happening is when I was working with people who are successful and I said something to them, um, what happened is that when I said something successful to them is they were listening. And when I was working in a prison, and the last prison where I was working is and I said I gave them some advice. They said, "How can you know that?" and so on. They were rejecting my advice, and not that my advice. It's not about my advice and the quality of my advice, but it's are you willing to listen in? Are you willing to want to accept my help? And successful people are much more willing to learn about it. Yeah. So um. How can I say? One of my of course, sometimes I'm really happy when something is successful, but I also want to forget those kind of situations. Why? I tell you why. Because I'm not so interested in when everything going really good. I'm only interested when something is going wrong, because then you need to stand next to them, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
until it's solved. So, um, yeah. Story, story, story.
It's a
That
tough one because you got so many, you know?
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah, that's it. And what I do is when I talk with people, yeah, I'm always going to give a story back from what I experienced with someone else. Yeah, so because
Yeah.
I always say to them, I'm not learning it from books. I'm learning it from all the other parents. I'm only learning from the other addicts in recovery and so
Yeah.
on and so on.
Direct experience, right?
Yeah, because that's where new theories are going to be created, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm constantly, relearning, learning, relearning, I put myself in a position of I appear like yourself to be someone who passes on information to help, other people, so you
Yeah,
could say you're teaching people.
yeah,
But I also remain the student, because I'm always relearning. Whenever I engage with, let's say, a younger person, I'm being reminded of what I continue to have to, live
yeah.
myself, you know what I mean? But okay, well, look, so
I got a story. I
a new one would come.
got a story. That was such a beautiful thing. Is I was working as a family counselor, and then and and the situation is that the girl. It was a girl. That the girl, the daughter, because I was working with the parents, and only with the parents. But the daughter was there, and she had some problems and mental health situations. And in a way, we don't know what the real problem was. But I was not interested in. in the daughter. Why? Because I was working with the parents. And what I always do is in the beginning is talking about, tell me about your youth. Yeah. And the situation was from the father. He was a police officer, I guess. Yeah, he was a police officer. And what he was doing is he was being abused when he was a child, coming from another country. And what the parents did, and we are talking about the 70s. Yeah, he was abused by a family member, and sexually abused by a family member, and of course he wanted to do something else, and didn't want to do the same kind of thing. But what happened in his family, and I think he got 4 children, and teenagers, by the way. So I was raised in the 70s and the 80s. But what's happening is that um, after that he was abused, the parents moved to the country, uh, and he even went to a psychiatric setting because it was too heavy what happened to him. But he came out of the situation and so on. And now the situation was that he every time when all the girls, because he was the only man in the family, and when all the girls went to sleep, and also his wife, he started to drink on the couch downstairs until I think 3 o'clock, or he fell asleep at 1 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock he woke up, and then for the next 2 hours he was sleeping in the bedroom. Yeah, and that was his life. He was an addict. Yeah, and let's And I was talking about in that every I don't know if you know that or you use it also, but I always say that 7 generations before you, what happened 7 generations before you has an influence on your own life. And so, and I said, what you were doing is your family member, your uncle, he has a problem, couldn't bear it, and he had to solve it for himself by sexual abuse, and you took it on your shoulders. Yeah. And and that's the reason that you are still drinking, I said to him. And I said, that's the reason that you are still drinking, because you're still taking it on your shoulders. What happened? But who is the owner of that? What happened to your uncle? Who is the owner of it? And I said, yeah, my uncle himself. Okay, let's give it back, because your child, you see that you are suffering, and she's taking your misery on her shoulders, and that's the reason why she is in the clinic. And he was listening to the story. I said, just give it back to your uncle. Yeah. Because it doesn't belong to you, and you carry it on your shoulders, and he has to be grateful for that, but just give it back. And in a way he did it. So the next day he said the same kind of thing to his daughter.
Wow.
And the next 5 weeks, the daughter has no problem anymore. And he stopped drinking. And yeah, then I'm a little bit proud, to be honest.
That's great, man. That's a beautiful outcome. So it sounds really simple. It's a simple premise. It's like, all you gotta do is just let it go, right? Because that's what you're saying is pretty much that, right? In my opinion, which is
Of course.
just let it go, put it down, give it back, right?
Yeah. But find the right key.
Say that again, sorry?
But find the right key to open the right door.
Oh, right, yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's what it is. Um Virginia Satir, she was therapist from the 70s, 60s. She said the problem is never the problem. The problem is the context where the real problem is situated. So when people come to you in general and they say, that's my problem, that's never the problem. Because when they know what the real problem was, the solution lies next to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so common. What you described is an isolated incident. It's not sort of like I believe, my opinion, like you just got to look around. I mean, it's just that's a really common scenario of like we carry other people's baggage through life.
Yeah.
Like we literally, until we choose to put it down, like you say, give it back, let it go. We carry it around. That's what I was doing. I was carrying it around for so long, and it is generational. What gets
Yeah.
passed down gets passed down gets passed down until
Yeah.
we put it down.
Yeah.
and changed the course of, the direction of what we wanna become.
Yeah. And just say that to people. That's how life is. And that's also normal, by the way. Yeah. And for example, what I learned from people from England, or UK in general, but is for example, people in the UK suffered much more from the World War than people from the continent.
And
Tell you why, because
Oh,
we
sorry.
couldn't do nothing. We could do nothing. So, but you had to fight for us. Yeah? So if you look at, and what kind of traumas you still see in families because of those kind of things, and what people still carrying, and um and that's the thing, is to recognize those kind of behaviors. Yeah, and to say, it's from previous generation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not my problem anymore, and I still make it. Everything what's happened now still making my problem, and we don't explain that to people anymore. But the business mental health, what they are doing is to find some scheme therapy, CBT, make some analyze and bring them to you so you can work a year on and so on and so on. And I'm more and more I'm fed up with those kind of things. Why why wait a year until they discover it? And so we instead of explaining it in the first 10 minutes of a talk.
Without getting too into it, because this is me and you, I know we could, and a lot of other people I know as well, could break this apart for the rest of the day and just really, you know, attack it. And I
Yeah.
don't want to appear to be someone that does that.
Yeah.
I've got an
Yeah.
opinion. We're entitled to that.
Yeah.
And I consider myself on the front line, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in the trenches with the troops, man. And do you think, your opinion, because you're obviously European, right? I'm in the UK, although I do a lot of work all over the world. Um, do you think it's a bit of a mess? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even say what's a mess. Do you think that we're a little bit lost? It's like I was talking to a very good friend of mine, Ben. I had him on. We had a conversation about the education system because we're talking about institutions, right?
Hmm.
And the pillars of the institutions, education, healthcare, etc., etc., etc. And we need them. I believe we need those pillars. Otherwise, if those pillars didn't exist, it would be a free for all. It would be a nightmare, right? Or maybe it wouldn't. But I'm not sure humans have the capacity at the moment to be able to, have a civil community of existence in society without getting too deep. It's quite messed up out there in a minute, isn't it? Right. So, without getting too into it, I'm just trying to touch on your opinion on, because you've got such a broad um, experience within the institutions of healthcare, it's fair to say,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so, yeah.
And a lot of what comes into that space is coming from obviously out here, right? Life in general,
Yeah,
all walks of life, right?
yeah.
Why is it that there's so many people really struggling, going mental, do you think? And do you think we're sort of we're not able to, do you think we're just totally out resourced? I mean, I can answer that about the UK maybe, but that's just my opinion. What about where you are? How do you see it?
Yeah. I'm going to give a personal example. It's a good one. You never heard of it. When I was 11 years, I was raised in a Catholic school. Yeah, so 12 years. So, and then you got nuns, but you also got brothers, yeah, those kind of people. Yeah, so it was a school from Dutch. And well, I was 11 years. It's 1980, by the way, to give you a kind of
Mm.
well, so I was learning.
Rudy, your sound, just to pause you a minute, your sound's
Yeah.
gone a little bit. I think it's touching on your zip, your little micy thing that you've got on.
Yeah, I can't, I don't see, but
It's got
this one better. This better.
That's it. It's good.
That's it. Yeah, that's better.
I think
I see.
continue.
Yeah, I start over again. Well, so when I was young, 11 years old.
Rudy, sorry to do this to you. Don't keep breaking your flow. It's coming a little bit tinny. It sounds like it's hitting your something. The sound is hitting something metal. It's coming out a little bit tinny and echoey. Flip it on your jumper.
That better, you think?
Yes.
Test 1, 2, 3.
That's
Yeah?
good. That's good. You may proceed, Rudy.
So, I'm going to tell you first a story about my own life. And talking about 1980s. And I was in my school, and I was there for 12 years, from 6th year up to my 18 years. Yeah, 12 years. So, and I had a chance in 1980 to start to learn typing, but blind. Yeah. But because it was a Catholic school, a brother school from we had to learn it from brother. I'm going to name him because he's already dead, I think. Theophilus, that was his name. Uh, and but he's a strange guy because he was always in your in your uh in your shirt, and he was always touching you all the time. He was he was a pedophile, to be honest. But I didn't know that word. So I came home and I said, Mom, I'm only going to learn this for 1 year because why? He's gay. Yeah, I think he's gay. Because I didn't know the word pedophile, to be honest. It has nothing to do with gay people. But so uh, um and my mom said, yeah, fine, yeah, then you won't do it 1 year. So I did all my best to learn blindfold typing when I was 11 years. And I was really good at it still, by the way. So, and I was thinking about later, why is this traumatic for me? Yeah. A, because we didn't know the word. B, because everyone of our school experienced the same kind of thing. Yeah, we have to be aware of him because don't be in a room only alone with him, only always with two. And we make jokes about it. Yeah, then that's that's what it is. And that's what life was in the 70s or the 80s. When we experienced a problem, we solved it by ourselves or we did something about it.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first thing. What we do now is we are using the DSM. So that's a little bit the diagnostic Bible from all the psychiatric uh, illnesses and so on. And so we are using those words in our common language. So we are talking when we're sitting in a cafe with other people or a restaurant, we talk about autism, um, OCD, trauma, and so on and so on. But these are only terms that need to be used between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Yeah, we are not talking about everything what's in your body like a surgeon. Yeah, so that's not how we talk. But when it's regarding mental health, we are talking about those kind of things. So everybody's using those words, and what they are doing is they give a diagnosis by themselves. But when you give a diagnosis by yourself, yeah, you are also creating your own illness. And when you create your own illness, yeah, you create a business. And when you create a business, yeah, you create kind of clients and you have to keep those clients. And then that's a problem. So what I'm saying in general, is NHS bad? No, NHS is not bad. NHS is good. By the way, you also got an NHS in Belgium and in the Netherlands and so on. They are all good.
Yep.
But people think more and more that they are ill, that they are very traumatic and so on and so on. But it isn't. They are sometimes just life events, and life events that can be solved by parents, because my parents dealt with it in how they dealt with it and so on. So, but the more that we think my child has a problem at school, yeah, so let's go to a specialist. No, we have to train parents to help their kids, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So we have to keep it simple, and I think that's the problem. So we are in a kind of a fight of
Oops. Oh, you've dropped your mic.
I know, I know. That's good.
It was
And we are
sounding it was sounding good there, Rudy.
yeah, and we are in in a kind of a hyperventilation situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we are become completely mad, and sometimes I heard those kind of expressions like, um, or colleagues from my previous colleagues were saying, yes, it was a very traumatic year for her because her grandmother died, and I don't find to describe it as a traumatic event, just describe it as a life event. Yeah, and but also
That's
communicate with the girl. It's normal. That's how life is. Yeah, that
grief is for all
yeah,
of us.
yeah,
We all I grieve.
yeah, yeah.
We all
Don't
grieve,
solve
right?
it. Yeah,
We all
don't solve it. Let it happen. Those kind of thing. And and what we all do is finding problems, and when you go to a psychologist and so on, they are sitting and waiting until the person on the other side is thinking, "What's your problem?"
So, from it's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So, because I wasn't pointing towards or suggesting that there's a problem with, the resources. I said the resources are stripped, like, out-resourced. But it's quite evident that there's a sense that there's not enough, right? But
Mhm.
what you've just outlined makes perfect sense, that maybe if everyone was to just settle down a little bit, and
Yeah.
take accountability, is that maybe for the fact that is that the right word? I don't know. Just to maybe just
Yeah.
pause, slow down, and reflect on
Yeah.
what is actually going on, rather than diagnosing it for yourself and saying, "I am this and I need this."
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Because how many times that I heard with the first call when parents are calling a clinic or us, because now I work at the GP, that's also some people come and sit there. Yeah, I need some EMDR. Okay, I did it with a girl, by the way. I give you an example. Yeah, I'm a storyteller. So there was a girl, 14 years old, and it happened some months ago, and she said, "I want some EMDR." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Yeah, because there were arguments. Her parents. I'm not going into detail because that's going to be very obvious then. But there were some arguments when I was young, and I still suffer from that, and so and that's the reason why I want to do some EMDR." And I said, "Okay, fine. Let me think about it." And I said, the week after, I said, "It's strange because I saw a documentary on the telly about policemen, but the heavy ones, yeah, the one who goes into the yeah in
Like
hostile situation, yeah,
riot police kind of.
yeah, and interventions when there is a hostage and so on and so on. So yeah, those kind of things. What they do in their training, they create traumas because that makes them stronger. They create a kind of near death experience and so on. So they have to drown underwater. So that's what they do with those police officers. So the more trauma they create, the more stronger they become. Yeah, because then they are not going to be so scared when there is a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
And I said, "You want to be a police guy, a person, or you want to do social work and so on." I said to her, "Don't solve your trauma. Embrace your trauma." Yeah, so what you were saying. Yeah. So because that's going to be a good kind of thing that you can learn from it when you are older, when you become older, and so on. And she said, "Oh yeah, that's correct." It was a nice girl, by the way. She said, "Oh yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, thank. I'm going to embrace it." And that's what we need to do. So don't solve everything in the beginning, but that's what people do. They come and they say, "I need some CBT."
Yeah.
And then my first answer is then, "What is CBT?" I know it, by the way, but yeah. So, but they come with a solution, but they don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. I mean, I knew, obviously the traumas that I feel I experienced, some were maybe generational. Well, they were, and some, or a lot, most, majority, I created for myself, right?
Yeah,
I created my own suffering, and I became a victim of that. So when I started to explore, that there's something going on for me, 'cause I never really got a formal diagnosis of anything. I feel quite blessed by that, actually,
Yeah, yeah.
because I lived in a time where, if I had gone and done a load of, assessments with a whoever, they might have whacked a load of labels on me that, I might have just used to reinforce my sense of self of who I am.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just the way I see it. For some people, it's evident that they actually get a lot of, um, acceptance from having someone say, "This is what's going on for you." But I think the way I see it is, if that
Yeah.
works, great, but don't be defined by it, you know?
No, it's not your identity.
Yeah. So
If everyone has said it, that you are a king, you are going to act like a king after a while.
Mm.
You so, but if I by the way, I'm not always believe in those kind of diagnose because being said by some people, but it is okay, fine. So
that's why I don't, I always talk about this, and it's quite controversial because, I definitely was entangled in addictive behavior, right?
yeah,
I still can have an addictive personality if I choose to attach to it, right? But I don't necessarily identify it as me being an addict.
yeah,
Does that make sense? So it's not like I'm
yeah,
around saying, "Hi, everyone,"
yeah,
"My name's Dave and I'm an addict." I choose not to do that anymore because for me, a true sense of empowerment came when I actually started to realize that the way I see it is addiction. This is just the way I see it. I see addiction for me is like energy, right?
yeah,
It's transient.
yeah,
It moves around.
yeah,
Sometimes it can be strong, sometimes it's not there. It's transient, right? So if I see it like that, this is just the way I see it because for me it works, right? It might not work for other people, but for me it really works. So if it's transient and it moves around, sometimes I don't feel like I'm in that energy, then at that
yeah,
moment, I'm not an addict.
no,
So why am I going to attach to it and say
yeah,
that I am an addict? Well, it's just reinforcing that sense of
yeah,
who I think I am or not or aren't.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
What I'm saying?
I tell you why. I tell you why, because what I sometimes see with people, and like you, by the way, we know a lot of people who are in recovery, and the situation is because they are in recovery, it becomes their identity, and so I'm Frank, for example, and I'm an addict. So you know. Also, your life is also going to be always into recovery, and sometimes you forget to live. Yeah. Uh, and that's what we have to create, and it's good that first year to talk like that. For me, it's okay. That's fine when it helped you of not going to drink again, of not becoming in the same kind of problems.
Yeah.
But after a while, yeah, just be normal. The only thing what people have like you, if you say it like that, is that you are allergic to it.
Yeah. I mean, I needed to call myself out and say that. I needed to arrest to really short circuit, you know,
Hmm.
the behavior around it, the
Do you still need it now?
what
To,
need what?
just I still needed to say it that you're an addict or what?
No, I never really, unless someone calls me out and says, "Dave,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you've just eaten 6 packets of fucking whatever in a row without stopping, without blinking."
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, maybe I'm just that's it, bit addicty right now," But I just don't see myself like that. It's been years, right? And now for the first sort of 4 years of my journey, I
Yeah.
100% identified as, this is where I'm at, this is what I need to do. But for
Okay,
me,
yeah, but yeah.
I started to see that actually I I've come a long way, and I've done a lot of different things, and I've used a different lot of different I've explored a lot of different methods, and mindsets, to
Mhm.
sort of get to where I'm at now. And I'm not perfect, you know? I still fuck up now and again,
Yeah.
but
What's your mindset now?
excellent. No, but, like, anyone that knows me knows, I'm a little bit, quirky, if you wanna call it that.
Yeah.
That's what makes me who I am, but I'm really at peace. My mind is really at peace. I have a very this is why I talk quite slowly. Some people pull me on how slow I talk at times. It's
Great.
it's because I've got stillness. I'm calm, I've got equanimity, balance,
Yeah.
order. It can be chaotic sometimes,
Okay,
right?
that's okay, yeah, that's
But
okay.
that's okay. It's alright, I'm okay. And so I'm very, very at peace with who I am, self-acceptance, etc., etc. And it's all because I've not attached to certain attitudes, mindsets, ideas, ideologies, labels that I could have done. I've outgrown them, and I've moved on. And and for me that's really worked. It's really helped me. Really helped me. So just because it works for me, some people need that identity. Some people need to attach to a sense of something, and that's okay. If it brings them joy and peace and all the things I've just described, who am I to judge? And and who is anyone to judge how I do it? It's very unique to me, and it's my
It's it's
journey.
it it's so funny, yeah. I'm going to tell you, it's not about addiction, by the way, but I got, as you know, I'm short. Yeah, so
How short? How you say short?
uh,
Like, so when we sat next to each
one,
other,
yeah, well, yeah,
I'm tall, man. No, I'm really tall.
yeah, you are tall, and I'm short. Uh, I'm in meters because I don't know in inches, by the way, but 1 meters 57. So
Okay, I don't know what that is in feet.
yes, like Napoleon and all those kind of, yeah. That's always my job. But what I did in the beginning, and the beginning is my first 45 years, by the way, because it's still fresh. Is people are going to see me, to look at me, and they think that I'm short. They will see it immediately. They will see it immediately. So what I did was starting about that topic. I mentioned it first.
Mhm.
And in a way, changing your identity, because that's what you were saying, mindset is I discovered that being short was between my ears. It was happening in my brain. It was not happening in my length, but happening in my brain. So I stopped doing that, and people don't see it anymore.
Mm.
So I changed completely my so not completely, but I changed that part of my identity because it made me also make me small. It made me little, and so on and so on. So people could belittle me, um, and that changed in my life. And I think we have to do that also with, for example, with people who are an addict. You are not an addict in recovery. You're just a great guy, hey, or a great girl, or a great woman. Um, Also with children, you are not ADHD, you are not a problem. Um, but that's what we need to talk is you are not you perhaps you have a little problem, like my length in my situation. It's not a problem, by the way, but it is what it is. And but in the end, you are the normal person, and we are much more into uh, uh, our disease is who we are, and that
Yes,
needs to change.
yes. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
Um, there's a saying, "As we think, so we become,"
yeah,
or "As I
yeah,
think, so I become." I
yeah,
mean, if you really sit with that, as I did,
yeah,
I came across that
yeah,
on a plaque on a bench
yeah.
in a Buddhist monastery in a garden. I was walking this garden. It was in a time when I was exploring, Zen and getting into meditation, right? And that really landed with me. As we think, so we become. And I sat on the bench and I reflected on what that actually meant. And I still use that. And that's a key component to what I'm talking about, what we're talking about,
Yep.
which is whatever I think, I will become that if I believe it. And if I keep, validating that to myself that this is what I am, then that's what I'll be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to disassociate with certain labels and just to realize that, I could actually change the narrative and say, do you know what? I'm 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 perfect as I am.
Yeah.
Don't need to fix anything.
And by the way, let's be honest about that too. So when we continue to do it like that, perhaps there are some listeners sitting here and said, "Yeah, but my son or my daughter or my," and so on and so on. That's a different kind of story, and you can say it like that. It's correct. There are some people who really have a problem, but 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 when we can remove from all those kind of mental health institutes and organizations and so on, those kind of people who are really normal, but they think they are abnormal, if you know what I mean,
Mm.
then we can help the other ones much better because they are still. I saw them, yeah.
Mm.
I saw them, yeah. I was working in a GP the last months and sitting there all the time. Yeah, fine, fine, until the guy came. Yeah, and talking about extraterrestrials and all those kind of things. And then I have to say, oh, now we have to move. Now they have to act, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and what schizophrenia was, I think. Um, so it was a heavy disease. Yeah, of course, this is not what we are talking now about. It's not about those people who need help, really need help. But we have to help each other. We have to help each other in those kind of things. And to
Yeah.
be honest, if it's okay that I'm going to mention this little one, um, all the social media and all those kind of TikToks and things. I don't know if you ever read the Anxious Generation of Jonathan Haidt, yeah, the
I've
American book.
I've
Yeah,
heard of it. I know of it. I've not
yeah.
read it.
So what deal we were overprotected in from the real world. Yeah. So parents are overprotected from the real world. So they are thinking, uh, when there is a playground, it has to be safe and all those kind of things. In our time, we could lose a finger when we were in those kind of playgrounds. Really, yeah, really. And we didn't have a helmet on when we were driving on our bike and so. And but we are underprotected regarding the virtual world. And
Yeah.
that's where our children sitting there too much in that virtual world and create anxiety. So they are too scared to do something in the real world. That's what he's explaining.
Yeah.
Really, really good book. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what I do with parents too. Is how long are they on their mobiles and are they watching? Yeah. So and yeah, they are too scared to create anxiety when you're
Yeah.
too much.
This is something I would say, it's this is a pandemic, right? I keep
Yeah.
using that word. Forget COVID, man. COVID was obviously, of course, that was a pandemic, but we all know what that was. But that was really hard for everyone. That was caught up in that time. It's a hard time. But I always knew that the real pandemic is what we're talking about, which is this tech dependency that everyone's
Yeah.
got. And I say everyone, maybe that's unfair to say everyone, but a,
Almost me.
a lot of people, including myself, I find it hard to not be entangled in tech. It's hard, because I have tech in my life until I choose not to have it. And it's increasingly hard to not have it in your life. Everything
Yeah.
is tech these days, and some of it is beautiful and amazing. I can talk to you as we are now. I can see my brother on the other side of the world.
You
Amazing.
can see each other.
Exactly. It's not all bad, but it is quite obvious to me. It really is very obvious. I think it is to a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
That there's definitely no coincidence that we've got this mad overusage of tech, you know,
Yeah.
and violation, if you want to call it that, you know, intrusion into our lives with it.
Yeah.
And some of that's our choice. We're choosing to do that.
Yeah. But we have to
And
be careful for that.
of course. And then there's a link between that and, I mean, ADHD is now like, I mean, God, it's basically like, I don't know, it's just like, it's so ingrained in language and dialogue and behavior.
That's it.
It seems to me that, you know, for me, ADHD, in layman's terms, for me, I identify with that, right?
Yeah.
And I could see the link, that there would be a link to how much tech I
Yeah.
choose to use or not, you know,
Yeah.
because that's how it affects me, if I'm honest. I can't pay attention.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm staring at screens all the time. So I really have to limit my screen use, right?
Yeah.
But rewind to the 80s, you know, years ago, when I was at school, I specifically remember sitting in class, not being able to sit still for a whole hour,
Yeah.
each lesson, all day, every
Yeah.
day for,
Yeah.
you know, that I found that really hard. So
Yeah.
was ADHD a thing back then? Was I one of those people that just could, you know, I couldn't pay
I
attention?
think so. To be honest, I worked my first 7 years in my career was in that orphan home, and I think I worked with 50 young teenagers, and I think only 2 of them had ADHD. Only 2. And these were problem children, by the way.
Yeah.
These were problem children. And looking at the situation now, because then it was the first time I discovered that term, by the way. Yeah. But I only know 2 of them. And the one was the guy who went from the to one room to the other room through the windows. Not through the doors, but through the windows.
What crashed through him like a stuntman, or he actually opened the window?
Yeah.
He
On the
crashed
third floor.
So he smashed through.
No, smashed. No, it went outside on the wall and then came into the other. So did those kind of things that you think, what are you doing? Why are you like that? And then now, with the knowledge of now, I think, that's ADHD. Yeah, because it was so busy all the time. He couldn't sit still and stand still and all those kind of things. But all the others, they were normal kids. They all normal kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the way I see it, for me,
Yeah.
I see ADHD, you know, not being able to pay attention, for me would be, I'm a creative live wire, right?
Yeah.
I'm a creative live wire. So I'm not the sort of person to sit on a chair at a desk. Like right now, I'm standing up talking to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I am not the sort of person who could sit still for very long in the 80s. I've learned how to do it now through meditation, amongst other practices I do.
And also age.
Meditation really does work. And age, yeah. But back in the 80s, you know, for me, ADHD, for me, was just, I'm a creative live wire. I need to be picking stuff up, using my hands and creating stuff and moving around. And that's just the way I was wired. You
Yeah.
know, is it because I'm just creative, or is it also there's some sort of angst underpinning, you know, and I'm not comfortable in my own skin and I find it hard and I'm restless and agitated. Well, yeah, of course, there was part of that because at the time, you know, there's some unresolved emotions and an issue I hadn't yet processed. That's hugely a part of that. So do you believe that ADHD for you, from where you're sitting, do you think it's part, like what I'm saying, create your creative live wire? Some people are just creative and they just don't know how to express themselves in
Yeah.
a certain way. Or do you think it's also, you know, they might have
No.
involved issues?
I'm
Trauma's at the
Yeah.
base of it.
At the moment, I'm following MasterChef. It's not about the presenters, by the way, but MasterChef, the professionals. How many young people standing there, 21 years old, 26 years old, 30 years old, that you think, they could be in jail, but they found they found their thing, and they are standing there and doing those kind of chopping and smelling and creating. They all got ADHD. All those chefs, they got, in a way, they got ADHD. But what we do now is, when you got ADHD, when you are a very creative person, yeah, saying like that, yeah, we have to find some medication that you can sit still, so we can give you some information that we need to do in school. No, don't go there. Yeah, just do some things, work with your hands, be busy, do some sports, whatever. Yeah, because that's your intelligence, not sitting behind books or something like that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's not who you are. I see your instruments behind you. Your talent and your being highly gifted is in your music and your expression, not in those kind of things. And to come to the first thing, yeah, by the way, that's the way you connect with all those other kind of people around you,
Yeah,
and you work
yeah,
with them.
totally. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. It's just the way I see it. It's my experience, you know, and I'm entitled to that. Is that for me? I self-medicated, right? I used a lot of drugs to try and make sense and to be in my head and be in my body at that time in my life. You know, I'm talking. This is a long time ago. I didn't have the awareness, and I hadn't yet got to the part where I was going to go on this journey of self-discovery. You know,
Yeah.
to find out, you know, who I really am, not who I thought I was, you know. As we think, so we become, you know. I was telling myself, I'm a loser, you know, I'm a loser, I'm not enough, you know, there's something missing. So I'm self-medicating and I'm trying all these different um, strategies and ways to sort of cope with. I didn't understand how to express myself, you know, and I was hugely artistic, but I kind of slowly started to peel away from
Yeah.
doing that
But
stuff because I got immersed in in escapism in all the wrong places, you know. And then I reconnected to my creativity and my art. Once I started this journey of self-discovery and recovery and whatever you want to call it, and this healing.
yeah.
And still to this day, I use it and, throw into the mix, you know, meditation. It's a potent mix that really works for me. Um, do I consider myself to be ADHD now? No,
Mm.
not at all. I don't even that word's alien to me really, for myself.
Still got a question. You
Cool.
self-medicated. You were medicating yourself. Who said you were ill?
I did.
Why? You
Bec
got kind of mirror where you were looking in the mirror from your environment, or were
It's
you?
I was in delusion, Rudy. So you know, I lost this sense of self, right? From a young age. I didn't really know who I was. I was lost, right? Disconnected from self, from my authenticity. So it's something I told myself, you know, that I'm not right in the head.
Yeah.
I'm not right in the head. That's what I believed. I'm not right in the head. You know, there's something
Yeah,
wrong
but
with me.
is it correct? Let's imagine that you were sitting in a class and all those students were like Dave, yeah, and the teacher was like Dave, and you could do whatever you want. You can stand up and you can walk and so on, and everybody found your behavior very normal. Would you still think that you were uh, wrong?
Um, yeah, I would. That's where my head was at, you know, because I didn't have rationality wasn't part of, you know, I didn't see the rational part of my mindset
Hmm.
was failing me. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't reconnect to rationality until, you know, my early 30s when I started to work on myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, it hadn't gone anywhere. Rationality hadn't gone anywhere. I just wasn't using it. So I was just telling myself a false narrative. So even if you put all of what you just said, if it didn't register in my mind, you know, it was failing me.
But is that then not the way you work? That when you see a little Dave in your work, yeah, then you say, yeah, but you're normal because you think you don't have any rationality, but you still have it.
Yeah,
It's
it's there. It's always there,
okay,
man.
yeah.
It hadn't gone anywhere. I just wasn't using it. So, like you say, little Dave. So, I've got little Daves. My little Dave, I would say, inner child, 7, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And at 7, he was, scared of coming out of the covers under the duvet. He was
yeah,
scared. He was scared, right?
yeah,
Vulnerable, insecure. And then I've got this 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old snarling teenager who sat in class or at home or outside in life, who didn't have that rational part of his brain, which, call it teen angst syndrome or,
like
it's,
Kevin the teenager.
it's like, fuck, if only you know what it's like to be me. Fuck.
What do you know? I know it better.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So the rational part of me,
Yeah,
adult Dave, adult David,
yeah.
who you see before you right now, he was sort of he was yet to sort of step in and get involved. He was sort of like just he was
We woke up.
yeah, he was probably looking at everything play out and going, "Fucking hell, get a grip." Because with every given situation I found myself in, I would be triggered, so I'd always go into child mode,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which I think is quite evident. We only have to look around to see that you could be sitting around with your family at Christmas and you see grown adults go into child mode. You get
Oh,
triggered,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
life triggers us, so I go into child mode. I
yeah.
can still do this to this day, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Still there. But I have the adult part of me now, the rational side. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, I get triggered by life. Life happens to me. I would go into that child mode victim. And of course, guess who's waiting to come in and sort it out? It's the angry little fucking Dave the teenager, Teen Hulk, to go, fuck it out. And he'd punch his way out of all situations.
Uh,
That was what was going on. So yeah, that rational part, Rudy, that he was asking me about, that adult parent part of me was yet to be practiced and put into
that's
practice. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
And that's common what I just described, right? I mean, that's really
yeah,
common, right? I'm not alone there with
yeah,
that behavior. That's kind of like, I think, what as we know through the work we do with a lot of the adolescents,
yeah.
it's developing that adult part, right? And use
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Indeed, it's not has nothing to do with when you were younger. It has more to do with what to do when you become older. That's also what I see, to be honest. I do my job already for 32 years. So the first person I work with in that orphan house, he's now 49, 50 years old because he was only 4 years younger than.
oh my,
So, it's so, but it's funny to see because you met them on Facebook, by the way, and then you see that they have a normal life, and then they become normal. So they discover their adult Dave, if you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
Yeah, so they also discovered their adult Dave, and that's so funny to see, to be honest. And that's also what I think when I see some young people who are struggling is it's okay, it's going to be okay later. You need that phase, you need that life. That's okay.
yeah.
And then don't go into mayhem and then in panic mode because that's the sooner you have it, the sooner you get rid of it. Yeah,
But
so
I mean, it's like a rite of passage, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
going from you know boy to man or girl to woman, whatever. It's quite a passage. I think it's a bit peculiar if someone doesn't go through some teen angst.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
But
it's
screen is Yeah, screen and social media made it much more worse. I had a girl, and she was 21 years old, and she had a problem, and she was sitting on the couch doing nothing. And I said, "Can I tell you about the previous experience?" And she said, "Yeah, she had a relationship with a girl, but that girl was very aggressive and so on, and so was a little bit domestic violence." And I said, "Yeah, fine, fine, wrong choice. Go further, go with your life. Yeah, don't stop now with your experiences. Go for the new experience with a good girl and learn from it." And what happened is that the week after, those parents of that girl, 21 years old, became very angry at me because I gave the wrong advice. Because I don't know what I needed to do to make some trauma release or something like that, whatever. Yeah, but to be honest, it's just a normal thing when you have a bad relationship or when you are drunk once and so on. It's okay. But people can't accept it anymore that something really serious has happened in their life.
Yeah.
What is not serious but normal?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I remember you saying you went back to post-war, right? You was talking about trauma, right? And generations of trauma. And I always think this, that, you know, I wasn't around at that time, so I can't possibly know. I can imagine, but I can't know what it was like to be
Nope.
going through that horror, right, of the war, Second World War.
Yeah.
But it's evident that there's still a generation out there that are survivors of that time, right?
Less and less, by the way, but okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there was a huge recovery from that, right? I watched a Beatles film last night actually about um they were coming out at that time out of Liverpool post World War, and it'd been the JFK shooting as well in America,
Clean, yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was a time when it was a very crazy time.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at we're looking around us now, and it's like evident that it's quite nutty now, right? But at that time back then, it was equally, there's some crazy shit going on, right? And the Beatles came out at that time, and that's why they were kind of like needed. That's why they blew up. Not just because they were needed, but because they were good. But they brought
Mhm.
a sense of distraction to a lot of people and a sense of joy, right?
Yeah.
And people latched onto that, and that's why there was Beatlemania. You
Yeah.
know, that's what the documentary sort of outlined. Um, so people from that time found something to pull themselves out of that,
Yeah.
doom and gloom. And
Yeah.
they found it in, let's say, the Beatles or Elvis or whatever. Rock and roll, basically.
Yeah.
Rock and roll got them out of it, right?
Yeah.
Music saved
But
a
it
lot.
also means that in that time, life was not so good.
What, in the context of
When you compare it to now, if
explain?
you look at the yeah, if you look at the situation now, and there is a website, Our World in Data, by the way, yeah, world is much better now than it was 40, 50 years ago. Real.
We're more advanced, do you think?
Yeah, there was much more misery, I guess. Yeah, but what happens is that we forget the negative part. It's like going on a holiday
Yeah.
with friends, and every year that holiday become much more nicer than it was really at that time. Yeah, so because we forget the bad things, and then
Yeah.
we only remember the good things. So we only remember the Beatles, yeah, but what we don't remember anymore, that, to be honest, as was continental speaking now, yeah, that British car were not so very reliable. Yeah, A, B, your food was not that good quality. Yeah, yeah, and all those kinds of things. This was not the best time in our life. in your life. But that's what we forget. That, by the way, that's the reason why you voted for Brexit. Not you, by the way, but in general, because we get back control. We wanted to go back in the past, but the past was it's nostalgia, they call it. Past was not so good, and but what we why we become better version is we accepted those bad things at those times, and we don't accept it now anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this was sort of the point I was trying to raise, was that,
Yeah,
you know, if people can get through post World War, you know,
yeah,
that generation, the good old British stiff upper lip. I'm talking about the UK here. I don't know what it was like for you lot over there, but um, you know, we got through and we got on.
yeah,
And we didn't really have the resources, we didn't have that, click. It's a sense of click, you know what I mean by that. Everything's just a click away, right? Like it's down.
yeah, yeah,
They didn't have that back then. And they had more of maybe a sense of community,
yeah,
togetherness,
yeah,
because right now, from where I'm looking, it's there. Yeah, there are pockets of community and togetherness, but
yeah.
because of the way social media and, everything's mapped out now, we are separate, more separate. We're really connected, but we are also quite separate socially.
And it's because I think because life is become better, so we don't need each other anymore. And in back in the days, yeah, so life was miserable, so we have to help each other, and yeah, we forgot that at that moment. So, but that doesn't mean that uh, that life was 50 years ago, 67 or whatever, was better. Life was not better, yeah, but we coped with it, and now we can't cope with life anymore. That's
That's
what I
really, really interesting. So look, I think we're going to close it off in a minute, Rudy. But I just on this note, I would love you to end with, I don't know, some sort of profound, wise. What's your takeaways thus far in your life, in your working um, experience? That could maybe be shared with anyone that might find this, that might give them a sense of, I don't know, inspiration. Maybe is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no. Yeah, what is yeah. Yeah, I'm not going into that, but I got one sentence that I always use for myself in my communication with other people. And it helps me a lot, and that's every behavior has a positive intention. And when you do something stupid or wrong, look at your positive intention. Yeah. And do you think it a good strategy? Perhaps not. So change your strategy, but keep your positive intention. So, and when some people harm you and you want to into communication with them, when it's your child, your parents, whoever your part, and they are doing nasty things or mean things and so on, when you want to communicate with them, start to listen to what's your positive intention. Why are you doing this? And when you found that positive intention, yeah, think, okay, was it a good strategy? Perhaps not, but now I know the positive intention, and then you can communicate with each other. Life is becoming much more simple.
And you use that. You just said you use that for yourself.
Yeah, but when people, for example, are taking, are having a relapse, to go into that, yeah, and say, why did you do it? Yeah, and then what what they are doing is, yeah, because I was an asshole and so on. No, no, I don't want to hear that. I want to, why? Because you want to have a solution of something. What was your problem? Yeah, I felt alone. Okay, fine. So, and was it helpful drinking? Not really, because I became more alone. Okay, fine. So you felt alone. So let's find another strategy. So, and it helps me in to listen much better, and also to listen to myself. And I do something stupid or wrong, or why did I do it? What was my positive intention?
Yeah, I like that, man. So what you just described to me, what I took away from that is that's self-examination. What are my motives? Why am I doing something? And how is it making me feel? It's that kind of thing. self-introspection, self-examination, you know? Where's my part in this? How can I change it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. And then why did I do something stupid like that? Something like that. Or why did I do that anyway? Yeah. So for example, why did I stop with that course? I was scared that I was confronted that I was going to fail. Okay, is that wrong? And so on and so on. So yeah, so
Like it. There you go. So thank you for sharing that, Rudi.
yeah, great.
And thank you for coming on. It's been really good to see you, and hang out. It's been good to hang out. It's been good to chat. We could go on forever. I know we could, and we do. So let's not bore ourselves or anyone else. But I'm going to wish you farewell. And I'm sure at some point I'll be seeing you.
Next time when we are in the UK, because we are visiting it every year. So
Yes.
uh,
Okay.
it's like
Oh.
we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when.
Ah, beautiful. Okay, Rudi.
Hey,
Thank you so much for your time.
you're welcome. Thank you too.
Okay, ciao. Bye.
Bye.